the floor to questions. This gentleman here, and could you just wait for a few moments till the microphone gets over to you so everyone can hear your question? Go ahead. Speak up a little bit, please. They can't hear you. Is it on?
Foundation. My question is about the political sustainability of using race as a factor in school assignments. So I guess I'd like to go beyond the Supreme Court decision and say, even if we use race as a factor as up held, given what's happened over the years, in recent years, in California, in Washington State, most recently in Michigan, this has mostly been an issue, I think, where the focus has been higher education, but when the issue is with voters, they reject any use of race. And that's of course, the Michigan victory for defenders of affirmative action turned out to be a Pyrrhic victory, right? Because now it's been completely overturned based on what the voters have said. And I'd like to know whether you think at the K-12 level, these kinds of plans, even assuming the victory before the Supreme Court, can really be sustained over the long term, given what we know from polling about how voters feel about use of race.
Okay. I guess that would probably be a good question for you.
I would love to answer that question. Well, first of all, we routinely do public opinion surveys, and we routinely revise our plan based upon what we hear from our taxpayers and from our parents. And I believe that we've been able to demonstrate that we can garner the kind of support for a voluntary choice plan to keep schools desegregated and to, as much as possible, given our demographic profile, to try to begin to address the issues of poverty. Let me tell you what happened in the schools that were exempted in the Hampton case in Jefferson County, the one that preceded this. The same plaintiff's attorney sued over guidelines in some specific magnet schools, and these magnet schools offered unique programs that were not available at any other schools in the district. And while the judge in district court, Judge Hayburn, upheld the use of racial guidelines, he did decide that these 4 schools were so unique that they would be exempt from the racial guidelines. I took over the student assignment plan in 1996. I was on the team that revised it in 91, and then the chair of the team that revised it in 96, and little did I know it was going to become one of my permanent responsibilities. But when I took over in 1996, I found DuPont Manual High School, our premier magnet school for math, science, technology, for instance, at 18% African American. And then, at the time of the Hampton decision, they were at 26% African American. Only by marketing, recruitment, reaching out to the community, both geographically, socioeconomically, and racially, working collaboratively with my staff. Today, you will find DuPont Manual High School at 17% African American. Over time, without the guidelines to cause conversation and to hold the vision as one of several criteria, you will watch it deteriorate. Central High School was another magnet school. It's historically our predominantly African American high school. Today, you find it at 83% African American. The political sustainability is doable if you constantly work with the community, and if you keep the importance of the vision in front of them, and if you use a variety of strategies and not race alone.
Can I comment quickly on that too? Ben, you're clearly right in the higher education context that using race as a preferential factor is deeply unpopular. In that area, the polls find that by about 2 to 1 that people support a socioeconomic preference. So support giving a poor kid from whatever racial background a leg up in college admissions. I think that in the K through 12 context that we're talking about here today, the data is much less clear. Doing socioeconomic integration is politically difficult, just as it is to do racial integration. And Pat's data suggests that in Louisville, it's actually the reverse, that racial integration may be more popular than income integration. I would say 2 things, though, in response to that. One is that if you poll the teachers, and I remember Andrew Trotters here from the Education Week did a story years ago about the Louisville teachers, and they polled the teachers and they found that what they wanted dealt with was income more than race. They said that they're on the front lines in the classroom, and what they wanted to avoid was a concentration of poverty rather than a particular racial mix. And the other thing I would wonder is if the Supreme Court strikes down the Louisville's use of race, as Rogers is expecting, and as unfortunately many people are expecting, then does socioeconomic status become more politically popular in a place like Jefferson County because it's a way to preserve some measure of racial diversity, which the community clearly supports. So I think it's complicated politically.
I just want to take it one point further. I don't think that most Americans, the majority of Americans, would have voted at the time of Brown versus Board of Education the way the Supreme Court voted. And in fact, public school desegregation has always been unpopular. The question is whether somebody in this country is going to stand up for it. We say we believe in it in theory. We honor Brown in principle. The question is whether we're going to honor it in practice. It's a simple question. And you may be right. If you throw it to the majority of the American people, we may lose on that. I think the American people are schizophrenic on this issue. We want to believe in integration. I'm not sure, though, whether we believe in what it takes to produce it. We'll find out.
I think that's true, that most Americans are not willing to engage in racial and ethnic discrimination, even for a goal as noble as diversity.
Well, I disagree with that characterization, but we're going to disagree on it.
Okay. This gentleman here, could you wait for the microphone, please?
Thank you. Mr. Clegg, could you respond directly to Ms. Todd's contention that the Jefferson County plan embodies local decision-making based on, local facts, elected board members, being in the mold of the federal court-ordered desegregation, backed by 80-90% majorities of blacks and whites in the design and in their opinion about what's best for their children, and really, as I understand it, opposed by really a very small number of individuals.
Well, this is actually a point where I think I'm in something of agreement with Ted. I don't think that whether racial and ethnic discrimination should take place is a matter that should be put to a vote. I think, or at least should not be put to a local vote. We've already answered that question on a national level. We answered it on a national level in 1868 when we passed the 14th Amendment, and we answered it on a national level in 1964 when we passed the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And I don't think that the local jurisdictions should be able to overcome the prohibition on government racial and ethnic discrimination simply by putting it to a vote. I also suspect that, and I haven't seen the survey that was distributed to the Jefferson County parents, but you can get different answers depending on what questions you ask. And I suspect that if you ask the parents in Jefferson County, do you think that a student should be denied the opportunity to transfer to a school because of his or her skin color, that you would get a majority that says no. And in particular, if you put to a vote two systems, one in which that kind of discrimination took place, and another in which many of the laudable goals of socioeconomic integration and so forth were achieved without racial discrimination, that most people in Jefferson County would opt for the latter.